Alright there, you little demons, Jules here for WhatCulture.com, and I am back once more to deliver a list to you through the power of sight and sound. Don't know what that intro is all about, but we're talking about amazing video game levels today. But they do have a little bit of a caveat, because they are amazing video game levels, though unfortunately we're over a bit too soon. So with this in mind, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 awesome video game levels that ended painfully soon. Number 10, Ashtray Maze, Control. Now, Control centres around a federal director with reality-bending powers who must face a supernatural force. And with a premise like that, you'd expect Remedy Entertainment's sci-fi title to have a few kaleidoscopic moments. However, nothing is as mind-melting as the Ashtray Maze. The labyrinth constantly shifts and morphs around you, with walls folding in, ceilings collapsing into the floors and doors manifesting from thin air. The geometry defies logic, which fittingly reflects the game's themes of distorted reality. Now, the song playing during all of this section, Take Control, isn't just mere background noise, since it reinforces the fact that Jessie has finally unlocked her full potential. And the level comes at the right time, since Control has spent hours focusing on slow-burning mysteries and fragmented storytelling. So as a result, players might be getting impatient since they wanted to get to the really trippy stuff, and so when the protagonist gains access to her entire arsenal, it is deeply rewarding and epic. Even though the Ashtray Maze is a fan pleaser, it only lasts 5 minutes or so. And though it is impressive for gaming moments not to outstay their welcome, spending more time in this section, well, that would have been ideal. Number 9, Lewis's story, What Remains of Edith Finch. Now, What Remains of Edith Finch follows the last surviving member of the Finch family as she returns to her family home. Now, while exploring the house, Edith experiences vignettes that recount the tragic deaths of her family. Although Edith's brother Lewis has the longest scenario, it never actually feels bloated since it's deeply creative from beginning to end. After struggling with depression, Lewis started working at a fish cannery to get his life back on track. Despite being praised for his professionalism, Lewis daydreams of escaping his mundane life. Now, for this section, players must carry out Lewis's duty at work while simultaneously navigating through his fabricated alternate world. Even though this idea could become confusing and messy, it's surprisingly accessible and easy to follow. The colourful and vibrant graphics of the fantasy world juxtapose effectively with the grimy aesthetic of his reality, and the magical land keeps growing and growing and growing, eventually taking over the entire screen, indicating that Lewis has lost touch with reality completely. Believing that he's about to be crowned king, Lewis walks straight up to a guillotine, allowing himself to be decapitated. It only lasts 10 minutes, but this vignette hits like a truck. As such, it would have been far more compelling to spend just a bit more time in his story. Number 8, The Falling Ship, Star Wars Jedi Knight, Dark Forces 2. LucasArts' underrated shooter has a variety of innovative missions where Jedi hero Kyle Katarn faces off against all sorts of enemies on battle stations, alien planets, and Imperial bases. But arguably the most creative and heart-racing moment in Dark Forces 2 is the falling ship. The mission opens with the anti-gravity system failing on the freighter which Kyle is residing on. With the vessel hurtling out of control and expected to crash into a canyon in under 4 minutes, Kyle must find the exit as fast as possible. Which is easier said than done, since the lack of gravity makes the Jedi's escape incredibly disorientating, especially when navigating around corridors, dodging falling debris, and fighting troopers, because apparently they don't have an off switch. Just take a day off, mate. Also, you have a tight deadline, creating a sense of urgency unlike anything else in the game. But there within lies the problem. Even though players would love to traverse through this ship in anti-gravity, you don't actually have a second to waste due to the restrictive time limit. If the level was much longer and the time limit was tacked on at the final checkpoint, will you be able to explore without compromising all of that delicious tension? Number 7, The Sword, Thief the Dark Project. Up until the Sword mission, Thief the Dark Project has a grounded tone that revolves around sneaking through mansions and breaking into castles. Being a stealth-based title, players shouldn't really expect to do anything else, right? But all of this is thrown out of the window upon entering Constantine's home. What begins as another basic infiltration quickly descends into a surreal scenario involving inverted rooms, optional gravity, and staircases that loop back onto each other MC Escher style, rather than throwing throwing you into the deep end though, the topsy-turvy structure is introduced subtly, making you initially believe that your senses are letting you down. This bold shift from realism to the otherworldly is shocking, especially when players realise they can't rely on their memory or navigation skills to get around the place. The nightmarish surreality catches you off guard because it feels like you've just been plucked out of a realistic adventure and dumped into the middle of this horror story with little to no warning. The sword is such a heavy departure from every other level that it could have in theory ruined the gaming experience. But the lucid assignment is a wondrous experience, and it's only let down by the fact that there should be more of it. Number 6. Shockwave Atrium. Inside. Inside can be completed in under 2 hours, so it's no surprise that many sections in this underrated indie would have actually benefited by being expanded upon. But if any part deserves to be stretched out, it's the Shockwave Atrium. After entering an underground cavern, you'll notice a device in the background that sets off a pulse every few seconds, pulverizing any organic matter in its vicinity. To avoid being reduced to mush, you must time your movements and shelter behind barriers before the shockwave hits. Now, although the concept is simple, a ton of varied puzzles are packed into this 3-minute sequence. You must hide behind walls, move in accordance with the swing of pendulums, carefully decide when to climb ladders, and move doors to shield yourself from the wave. Even though the boom isn't deafening, the sound design here is cinematically terrifying. Watching the air being warped and debris flying in every direction over and over is a constant reminder of what will happen if you take one wrong step. Now, like many aspects of Inside, this sonic machine's purpose is never actually explained, nor do you even get a good look at it. Nevertheless, it leaves a huge impression, which is why it's a pity when it all just comes to an end. Number 5. All Gillied Up. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Rather than having another World War II focused storyline, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare broke the mold, introducing a contemporary setting. It delivered a cinematic, high-stakes campaign and implemented a groundbreaking multiplayer that offered a leveling system and all sorts of perks that we absolutely adored. And while Modern Warfare has many gripping and pulse-racing missions, there is one that towers above all else. Rather than charging around guns blazing, All Gillied Up presents a slow, methodical stealth mission in Chernobyl. Being surrounded by the irradiated ruins of this once prosperous city creates a permeating and pretty haunting atmosphere that is hard to shake. The mission is a flashback centering around a key character, Captain Price, which showcases his personal stake in the modern conflict and gives emotional weight to the overarching narrative. Even though poor execution can make a slow-paced mission come across as boring, All Gillied Up is a nerve-wracking experience from beginning to end, whether you're crawling under a convoy of tanks or sniping enemies from a mile away. You're constantly reminded that every breath you take may be your last. Now, the rest of COD 4 is fantastic, especially that out-of-nowhere ending, but it would have been nice to have seen more levels like this one. Number 4. A Crack in the Slab. Dishonored 2. Though Dishonored 2 deals with witchcraft and other paranormal themes, the most defining moment is when it goes down the sci-fi route. The core mechanic in the Crack the Slab mission involves a timepiece that lets you switch between the present and the past in real time. Now, although this could have been a visual gimmick, it's beautifully interwoven into the level design, puzzles, and stealth gameplay. You might see guards in the present and be able to avoid them by travelling to the past. You can remove obstacles in one timeline to open a path in the future, and certain puzzles can be solved by manipulating the environment across both times, like closing a door in the past to block a guard in the present, or triggering events that change the entire state of the mansion. The different methods of playing in the past create distinct outcomes in the present, encouraging multiple playthroughs to see just how each choice affects the world. This time distortion is such a stroke of genius that it would have been awesome if it was incorporated into later levels or just its own game entirely. Too bad though that time travel is never utilised again, compelling players to revert to standard combat and stealth missions after this. Number 3. Exultia. Doom Eternal. Though 2016's Doom was a welcome return to form for the series, I'm not going to say it all the time, Doom Eternal cranked everything up a whole notch. Rather than dealing with more of the same, this installment emphasised tactical combat, strategic enemy choices, and deep lore. It incorporated new features including wall climbing, a fully explorable hub world, and obliterating monsters with a bloody sword. So yeah, that's nice. But one of the coolest parts is when the Doomslayer enters Exultia, or Exultia if you want to pronounce it like that, and takes control of a high-flying demon to collect an out-of-reach object. Now, playing as the Slayer is an absolute blast, but it's not as satisfying as using jump jets to shoot hundreds of feet up into the air and annihilate imps and mancubi with shoulder-mounted rocket launchers. It just isn't. The mission occurs early on in the main campaign, so players may actually assume that they'll get the chance to possess another hellish creature in the future. And even though it would have been sensational to take control of a cacodemon or marauder, for example, this is the only time you get to play as a demon. Due to the positive reception of this section, you'd think that id Software would implement something similar in the follow-up Doom. I'll do it one more time. The Dark Ages, but sadly, that wasn't the case. Hell, it would actually be cool to play an entire Doom game from the point of view of a demon, but hey, maybe someday, maybe someday. Number 2, Gateway Galaxy, Super Mario Galaxy. Using the winged cap to fly around in Super Mario 64 was one of the biggest highlights of that iconic platformer. Having said that though, the flying mechanics in Super Mario Galaxy are far superior. In the Gateway Galaxy, the Italian plumber can obtain a red star, turning him into Flying Mario. The level contains no enemies or puzzles and can be completed simply by just getting 100 purple coins, many of which are airborne. So the task is pretty simple, but it is a joy to perform thanks to the uplifting music, the precision of the controls, and the level of freedom that players are offered. Though the winged cap requires a triple jump to fly, all you have to do to activate Flying Mario is wiggle the controller, making it easier than ever to soar through the heavens. Even though Super Mario Galaxy has plenty of fantastic power-ups, Flying Mario is one of the most enjoyable, so it's kind of puzzling why it features just once in the entire game and is absent from the sequel altogether. For this reason, players may be incentivized to repeat return to the Galaxy Gateway just to sail across the cosmos again and again. And number 1, the Silent Cartographer, Halo Combat Evolved. Now, most entries on this list are remembered because they introduced a unique weapon or awe-inspiring mechanic. But in Halo Combat Evolved, the Silent Cartographer assignment is a fan favourite simply because every aspect of it is flawlessly designed. The level starts with a kind of D-Day style assault on a Covenant-controlled beach, immersing players immediately and showcasing large-scale action. Your task alternates between intense combat, quiet exploration and vehicle traversal, keeping things varied and engaging. Now, rather than following a linear path, you can take whatever approach you desire to complete your objectives. You can decide whether you want to rush the beach, storm the bunkers, or take the Warthog for a spin. And since you can travel through different paths, it's easier to miss certain objectives, adding an extra layer of strategy. It's also important to know that finding the cartographer lets Master Chief locate the control room for the Halo ring. And so, since the stakes have never been higher, players should be more than determined than ever to reach their goal. The Silent Cartographer is pretty long actually, taking about 30 minutes to complete. However, it offers a riveting experience unlike anything else in this game, so it's kind of a shame that there wasn't more moments like this one. And there we go, my friends, those were 10 awesome video game levels that just ended a little bit too soon. I hope that you enjoyed that and let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. And if you want to follow me on the social medias, you can do so by going up here, where I'm at RetroJ, but the O is a 0 on both Instagram and Blue Sky. Hope to see you over there, my friend. But before I go, I'm not going to end this video too soon. Before I get to dole out some positivity to you lovely people, and I'm going to remind you of just that you are a good person. You deserve love, happiness, and success. We all do as human beings, all right? So treat yourself well and treat others well too. Just remind yourself, each and every day, you're a big ledge, all right? As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.